Welcome back, my friends, to the Predictive Playbook. It's the eve of the Ryder Cup, and although this is not a golf show, I try to make it a little bit of a golf show from time to time. But we all appreciate you coming on to listen to us. We're going to talk like 2 minutes on the Ryder Cup because there's really not too much to talk about quite yet because the matchups have not been released. There's a little bit of secrecy before they release it. But I will start with that now. And I love how the Europeans play the underdog every single Ryder Cup. That their team is on paper not quite as good as the U.S., but it's loaded. It's led by John Rahm, for goodness sake, and it's almost like they are led by their captain and instructed over the years by the veteran golfers that when we play, whether it's in Europe or especially America, we got to play that underdog card because you know what? In golf, American fans love the underdog. So it makes the fan base here hate us less. But it's going to be passionate. That is for sure. And there was one I gave out in the show yesterday. Now, Europe has the cup. If they end up tied, it's retained by Europe. A tie right now is the YouTube thing just went off on our show. Anyway, the tie is 12-1, which I like quite a bit. Europe is plus 240, USA minus 215. So, I think that the play is, then that's a real pizza bet. 12-1 for a tie. I think is much better than taking Europe plus 240. And I'm not going to lay Wood minus 215 on pizza money or any money. Not even Steve Merrill's money. Well, maybe Steve Merrill.
Right. We can waste that.
Yeah, we could, do
we
10
could never
pizzas.
spend it all. We could never spend it all, Steve Merrill's money.
No, I doubt it. But the golfer props are interesting here, too. The one that I like here, I'm just looking at the names here. Oh boy. This has been it's got to be a full moon. I think it is a full moon today, isn't it? So Sergio Garcia. This is a wager for top combined points scorer. So that you get a point for winning a match. I do believe in researching this last night that he will play 5 matches. I originally thought he'd play 4 with this lineup. But I think he's playing pretty darn well right now. And he is one of the best, if not the best, Ryder Cup player in history, along with Ian Poulter, who's also on this team. He's 30-1 in this category. But I think Sergio is a real good pizza bet. And, of course, on the American side, Patrick Cantlay here, too. I failed to mention him first. 10-1 to be the top combined points scorer. So then we break it down to top team USA point scorer. And at 7-1, I like Patrick Cantlay a lot. He's the world number 1. He won the FedEx Cup. We saw how he can putt in those 3 events in the FedEx when he's rolling. And at 7-1, I think there's a lot more value than playing Justin Thomas at plus 450. So that's another one. And then there's top. They actually don't show the top European. Why don't they show the top European scorer? Well, there again, I would go with Sergio, and I think yesterday it was 22-1. And that's really all we have for now. The matchups will be released later tonight. I actually don't know if there's a specific time, but it's kind of like waiting for the judge to show up for one of Tony Finn's hearings, and you just don't know when it's going to be, and you're waiting around. Oh, hey, Tony, what's going on?
Did you say
I didn't know you're on the show.
am I?
Yeah, we're live too.
We're live too. Well, then
Yeah.
I guess I better.
Well, at least breathing.
Yeah. Well, I better put my game face on then, because I just kind of was hanging out listening to you guys. I've been here about 2 hours listening. You haven't
Well, let's
said
talk about
anything.
golf.
I know my timing.
Golf.
Your timing's impeccable.
Golf.
Is impeccable. I'm glad you're done with that though, because it's already 1:30 and change.
You didn't put the Ryder Cup bet in that I told you to do yesterday?
No. No.
Now you're in Las Vegas, Chris?
I only bet. I only invest in Finn releases. Sorry.
Interesting. And I'm not even going to ask what that is. Nick
You don't
Borman, I
want-
spoke to him a couple texts. I wanted to give him a shout out.
Yes.
We're going to do a show tomorrow, believe it or not, probably at about 7:30 a.m. That's 4:30 your time. Mr. Finn, you'll probably just going to bed.
Now he'll be awake.
No, I'll be up.
Yeah, he'll be
I'll
up.
probably be up. And if I'm not up, it's because I'm up. I'm up.
Yeah. So I'm going to pipe in the.
Speak of the devil. I don't. What is it? What is it about? What is it that brings? You start talking golf, and Las Vegas Chris shows up.
John?
Oh, there he
Hey,
is.
Chris.
Yeah, I'm on the
Hey,
show.
Chris, can you switch with Tony here for a couple minutes?
I'd be more than happy to. I've got work to do, but he probably wouldn't know how to. He wouldn't know how to
Chris
operate
muted
my
your
fancy
mic, Tony.
equipment. What's that? And then we've got a new addition in the household this morning.
Is he here to stay?
There's now two
there's
additions.
Mr.
One's
Finn.
Las Vegas Chris. And
Mr. Finn,
Right,
yeah, I'm here.
second tile in.
Can you hear me?
your mic's muted.
Oh, beautiful. Hold on.
No,
Let me
I hear
get
him. I hear him.
I was gonna say I don't show it's not muted.
I hear you.
Do you hear Rob?
I can't hear any of you guys.
Well, that wouldn't be us
Oh,
then.
that's not us. That's not us. Do you write Las Vegas Chris off on your taxes, Tom?
Oh, that's great.
That would just cost me money.
Okay.
IRS would immediately investigate.
He can't hear us.
I know.
I
Well,
can't
tell
hear.
him.
It's totally
Well-
become our show. What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's tell him. Let's go on to the chat room here. Hold on. Comment.
Oh, there, it's coming back. Now it's coming back.
That's not
Okay.
us, John, because we were talking to each other.
Wow, I couldn't hear either one of you just then.
Well, that could be. Things happen for a reason. You probably didn't want to hear what we had to say about you. Do you read lips?
Usually when I'm coaching baseball, I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah, well.
Oh, sign
I-
stealer.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out what the manager's trying to say to the umpire.
Oh well, when I talk to the umpire, it's quite transparent. It's quite clear, because it's typically at an elevated tone.
So will there be fisticuffs at the Ryder Cup? Will there be a brouhaha? Because they really won't hit each other, but will somebody shove another player?
Is there a specific?
The only fisticuffs, maybe that's if Bob Barker shows up. He might get hit.
Oh yeah, Happy Gilmore.
Better
right.
yet, will two players on the same team shove each other, as in Kupka and DeChambeau? You
Depends
can
on
bet that
who-
they won't be paired up, and they're in
Depends on
separate
whether
rooms, I'm
Shambo's-
sure.
Well, Shambo's, being selfish with the Quaaludes, with the golf ludes. If he is, then there may be some pushing, maybe some shoving. Certainly would be if I was there.
Well, Dustin Johnson has some pictures on social media with him and his wife, who is the Great One's daughter, and they're all cozied up and looking like they're on the Bachelor in Paradise show or something, but they're married. So I guess he's going to play really well.
Why is that?
There you go.
He's nice and relaxed. He's loved by his family. He's not a care in the
He's with his
world.
wife. He's on a beach and there's sand. Then he's probably juiced. And from what people have told me, he doesn't perform at the top level when he's juiced.
So who does Las Vegas Chris like? I'm sure you heard my bets.
He didn't hear anything because I don't have this. This is
Oh.
not. It's not anybody that's here in the studio. It's around. They can't hear what you're saying. Only what I'm saying. And most of the time they say, "Listen, that's all we want to hear, Tony."
Let's keep it that way.
Here's what Nick Borman said. until we just got sidetracked.
right.
Nick
Well,
Borman
hold on.
likes the USA to win the Sunday singles at minus 160
You tell
on
Nick
DraftKings,
Borman-
and
you
I
tell-
like that quite a bit too.
You tell Nick to keep his inconsiderate and vulgar language to himself. That we don't. That in the Finn orbit, the only thing we do in golf is play winner rules. No matter what anyone says, we play winner effing rules.
I like
Well,
that.
Always play the ball
when I go
up.
over to his country club, we'll be sure to do selfies and send them to you.
Sure.
We'll do
Yeah,
tweets with a selfie attached to it saying, "Yo, Tony, look at us."
Yeah. Make sure you got your polo collars turned up, and that all photos include Rodney Dangerfield. If they don't include Rodney, then I don't really care to see him.
Yeah.
I thought maybe John
One
Daly.
of my favorite all-time golfers, Roger Dangerfield.
Got a hell of a putter, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got a hell of a bag. You seen that bag?
Mm-hmm. That bag is
Got a,
Yeah.
got a beer. He got a tap on it, and it's,
Well, it works.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So we're gonna segue
What?
into the
off
nonsense that's
track
going on
again.
in Philly.
What's going on in Philly? What? How come this show is golf and Philly infested?
Well, that's where the news is.
All right.
That's
I'm
where the
listening.
news is.
I'm listening. Somebody's going to try to make claim that defading Phillies and their right fielder deserve more than they've gotten.
Oh, he's not even going to baseball with this.
Yeah, well, I have no doubt that Harper's won the National League MVP.
Oh, he has?
Yep, because I have two tickets that says he
I
did.
would beg to differ. I would beg to differ right now. In fact, straight up, me and you, I'll take
go.
Tatis. I'll take Tatis.
All right, let's do it.
Well, sure. Well, how much can you afford
Right.
to lose?
Well, I don't have any Quaaludes to bet, but I could bet you a 6-pack or something. I'll even mail it to you.
You will? It's pretty expensive
Yeah.
to mail it, you know.
Yeah, ground. I mean, it might be a little stale and
I
flat
don't
by the
know
time it gets there.
How long is it going to take to get to the Oaxaca? I want a 6-pack from the Oaxacans in South Mexico.
I'll Venmo
They'll
you.
sell beer here, huh?
I'll Venmo you $25 to which you can purchase
$25.
any. Yeah,
You won't even make the phone call to order this beer from the Oaxacans.
You got here.
All
just
right,
in
so
time,
I got
Tony
Harper,
Mejia.
you got Tatis, and
Tatis.
I know I've already won.
Here, I'll tell you what. I'll take the tees. You can have the field. That's how confident I am.
This whole thing that's going on now in Philly is really starting to get kind of ugly because there's groups of people forming
Yes.
to be there on day one of the NBA preseason practice that
And?
starts on Monday.
And
And it reminds me of
they'll be
the situation
around
with Pete Rose.
the whole floor, and they'll think the players.
You remember who
just
Pete
hear
Rose
him.
was?
I can't hear him. Do I remember who he was?
Yeah, do you remember Pete Rose?
He lives right here
Okay.
in the neighborhood.
And I'm glad Rob's here because he will agree with this. When he played for the Reds and came to Philadelphia, he was hated.
Well, of course he was.
He was dirty player. He was this,
was
Charlie
never a
hustled,
dirty
and
player. He was never.
But in 1980, when he was as a free agent became a Philly, oh my God, it was the second
Hence-
coming of the Lord.
Hence, listen.
It was.
That's all 3 sentences you just described Philadelphia fans.
And how about if that happens to Ben Simmons?
If it happens to Ben Simmons and Ben Simmons comes back and plays in Philly,
I'm
they'll
thinking
hate
more.
him. They'll hate
if
him.
it's-
They've probably won 2 championships since then, and they'll say, "Geez, Ben, look what happens when you leave."
Well, they're not going to win one with or without him.
Well, they're not going to.
Who's going to? I mean,
Who? Joel Embiid.
here's
will
a
do it
thought.
all.
Here's a thought. Let's say that a lot of the stuff we've heard has been grossly embellished by the Philadelphia media. That really, he might have said that, I probably should go to another team. It just got really ugly there. I feel bad. I didn't play very well,
So you're
and,
saying
and
that
now it's out of hand.
you're saying he's going to show up to the first day of camp if he's still a 76er. You're saying
The
all that's nonsense.
Rob, didn't you hear that he is going to be there, but he's going to be greeted by a mob, which is being fueled by the local radio stations, and people are planning to take off work
And do
and
what?
boo him.
Well, you know what? Again, now we've added the fourth sense to the description and likeness of the Philadelphia fans. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to take a day off work. I use one of my vacation days. I'm going to go down, sit behind some plexiglass around the hardwood floor, so Ben can read my lips.
Yeah,
Listen. I don't care to even discuss those kind of people.
and you know what else will happen?
What?
They'll sit there and badger him, and then as soon as he gets within 3 feet of him, hey, can you sign this for my kid?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not for his kid. They're going to go sell it.
You're going to start getting drive-bys. You're going to get Twitter drive-bys from Philly fans because you're not talking very kindly about
Well, that proves I'm not a homer then. But wouldn't it be something like this? I know this is a stretch, and I know it's not going to happen. But let's say Simmons comes back and he gets hammered, and all of a sudden he's playing the season, and then all of a sudden they start winning by a lot and dominating, and all of a sudden they win the world championship. Then what are they going to still hate him?
Well, hold on just a second.
Are they going to still hate him? No, of course not.
Less than 2 minutes ago, you said they're not going to win a championship with or without him. Which one is it?
Well, I'm just saying if he plays on the Sixers this year and plays regular season games.
You just said with or without him.
Oh, I didn't mean it that way. I meant it that they're certainly not going to win one. Like Embiid needs somebody.
He does. You're right. He does.
And they're kind of like Batman and Robin.
Somebody that doesn't have a first name of Ben.
They're like Finn and Vino. Like that combination, that duo that feeds off of each other.
It's a gold standard. They can't have that.
How are you, Mr. Mejia?
Oh, I'm all right. Watching the Brewers blow a 5-1 lead. So
yeah, I just noticed that it's 5-5 now.
Yeah, that's what happens with bullpens.
Listen, these St. Louis Cardinals, someone in that organization has sold their soul to a Philadelphia fan, the devil.
To get beat by the Dodgers?
No, to win 11 in a row.
To get beat by
working on number 12.
Yeah, well.
And I remember we all agreed that their schedule was going to be too tough.
Oh, yeah. And I said it the other day. I was talking to Chris, and I said, well, they still do have to play the Cubs 7 times, and the Cubs will cheat, bite, steal, scratch, and claw to beat the St. Louis Cardinals. Nothing makes them happier. Yeah. Other than showing up courtside to badger Ben Simmons and take a day off work and lose money doing it.
And Monday's also Eagles at Dallas. So that's oh boy.
It's at Dallas at least.
Yeah, at least. Can you imagine? Oh man.
It was in Philly and Tony Romo in the press box. They might listen. You probably have to walk through like a metal detector and a bomb detector for that game. Tony Romo.
You're probably right. It's really not even funny. It's kind of sad, but what I always found amazing with this, and if I get a drive-by, I get a drive-by, is that the Eagles are passionate. Okay, the fans are. I get that, but they have this imaginary rivalry with the Dallas Cowboys that their fans also hate the Eagles as much as they hate Dallas. And if you've ever been to Dallas to see a game.
No,
they're just another team.
There's no more hated team on earth than Dallas, other than the New York Yankees.
Yeah, probably the New York Jets.
I got Tony's attention.
Probably the Jets.
There is no team. You either love the Yankees or you hate the Yankees.
That's true.
You either love Dallas or you hate Dallas, and it comes in large numbers.
That's what happens when you win 20-plus world titles. What is it, 28, 29, something like that?
27, I thought. 20, is it 28?
It happens when you have brilliance and just ingenious owners like Steinbrenner.
Well, he was. I mean, he was the only one that invested his profits back into his team instead of taking the profits and putting them in other businesses.
That's not true.
So there you go.
There was an owner that
Kaufman.
outspent. That's right. He outspent
Yep.
Steinbrenner, and he said, "I don't care how many millions I lose," which is it's like me. It's like the five of us say, four of us. There's five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Saying, it's going to be a rough month because I gave to 4 homeless people this morning. I gave $1 to 4 homeless people this morning. Kaufman had so many millions. He had more millions. He'd forgotten where he buried more millions of dollars than I was going to say than we'll ever see. But I barely. It's tough for me to scratch together $21 bills that I have stashed away to find those. Those were designated and tagged for the strip club.
Well, when Amazon first started,
homeless, or they spent on the strippers.
When Amazon first started, and I was working up there in Wall Street, every quarter Bezos would do the investor, show.
Yeah.
And every quarter was anywhere between $250 and $400 million loss in the quarter.
Yeah.
And he would say, "We're right on plan. We are right on plan."
I was really worried.
And back then, those were big ass numbers. Back then, I mean, now it's kind of like, that's basically almost break even.
Those are still big ass numbers.
Well, for us, I mean, maybe not Steve Merrill, but us.
Well, no, Steve Merrill, he catches he'll catch a falling penny and hide it.
There you go. We have a new financial term, catching a falling penny. You could throw your back out doing that if too often,
Well, yeah.
But let's get back. Let's move on to football. And I guess the NFL would be a good topic unless you guys want to do college. And then tomorrow we're going to do NFL. We could do a combination of both. But I know somebody in this room likes the Miami Dolphins this week, and I definitely concur with that play. So that is one of Mr.
Which of the 5 of us in this room likes the Dolphins?
Is Las Vegas Chris still behind you? I only see 4.
Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 of us.
Thank God there's no drug tests at Wager Talk or anywhere that we work.
Yeah, then they'd know exactly what I had in my cabinet, and I'd have to share the shit. That's a good thing there's no drug test.
Well, before we let Rob Vino do that pick, I want to show you this, and we don't have to have much of a discussion on it, but this is the Westgate Lines preseason before, I think it was 8 weeks before the season started. So what I'm attempting to show on here is Bears versus Browns first game listed. That long ago, the market had it priced with the Browns as a 7-point favorite, and lo and behold, it's still 7. Total's gone from 44.5 to 46. And what this is reflecting is the whole betting community's perceptions of these teams. So it's much like you have a price on Apple computer, and 6 weeks later you look at it again, it's a different price. Well, that's reflecting all the stuff that happened and then anticipating 6 months out. And that all that information that you think is going to happen is factored into the current price of Apple computer. And I believe the same thing applies here. In fact, it's very contrarian. And I'm going to move right to this one, Seahawks Vikings. -1.5. Now we're -3. But look at the total. 48 to 55. 7. So if it's highlighted in yellow, it's moved a lot. So 7 puts it up at 55. It's actually 55.5 now. And that is after 2 weeks of watching these two teams, and the market has moved that much. And I'm going to have a play on the under. This helps as one tool of many it tells me to bet the under. These big moves of, and we're going to see in week 6, 7, 8. There's a potential to see moves of double digits from where we thought these teams were. Like say the Eagles go down to Dallas and they win, and now they're 2-1, and suddenly we get to week 6 and they're 5-1 on the season. And I'm not predicting this, but can you imagine? Preseason we thought the Eagles were going to suck. They were going to be as bad as Jacksonville. All of a sudden they're 4-1, and the market prices them way above where they should be, giving us an opportunity to basically sell into strength. So that's what I'm trying to show in this little report here. And Dolphins Raiders is certainly another one. So that was a pick 'em. Now it's 4.5. What have the Raiders done? 2-0, 2 impressive wins. Maybe not the first one, but the second one was real impressive, winning in Pittsburgh. And now you have the market saying that, wow, the Raiders are much better than we thought. So what do you think of all that? Let's start with Mr. Mejia first.
What would you like me to comment on?
Anything you want. You don't have to comment. You can agree. You can say that that's a colorful spreadsheet.
It's a lovely spreadsheet. I think it's interesting with the Vikings that the over's getting that much love. I mean, they'll get Griffin and Barr back. Two of their better defenders who missed last week's game. But I just saw that Dalvin Cook has missed his second straight practice, and he's dealing with an ankle injury. So if for some reason he doesn't play, you definitely want a shot at that under. That would be my comments. And then I was also looking at the schedule to see which one of these games will be my ratchet pick of the week, which is the video that I like to do to highlight the worst matchup of the week. And we have a couple of candidates, Jets, Broncos, and I think I'm going to go with the Giants in their matchup, the 0-2 teams.
And you like the Giants?
I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. I just mean that'll be the game that I hit on in tomorrow's video. So keep an eye out for that.
Is there? Yeah, there's only been
we hit our
3
ratchet game last week with the Broncos.
There's only been 3 teams to ever win the Super Bowl. It started 0-2. 93 Cowboys and the Patriots and the New York Giants in 2008, I believe it was. Out of 285 teams that actually played in the Super Bowl, it started 0-2.
So I'm going to interrupt you and say, throw all that stuff out the window. It doesn't. None of that applies anymore because now we have a 17-game schedule. Throw it all out.
I would agree. Yeah. So that means an 0-2 is not as bad as it used to be.
I agree. It won't be as bad as it used to be. It just won't. I mean, it's like anything in life. Anything, a coin flip, whatever the case may be. There'll be more 0-2 teams that make the Super Bowl. When we look at this 20 years from now, when I'm still sitting at my desk here in beautiful, fabulous Las Vegas, I'll be pretty old, but I'll be saying, John, look, Philadelphia started 0-4 last year and made the Super Bowl. And they did it with Ben Simmons. They did it with Ben Simmons, a quarterback, field general.
He probably would be a pretty good wide receiver, don't you think? 6'10".
He might be a tight end. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
He'd be a good red zone target. That's for sure.
He'd get hurt.
Yeah, even Carson Wentz could hit him.
He would he'd catch the ball and it required that he make a free throw for the touchdown to count, and then none of his touchdowns would ever count.
Now switching just to college football here a second.
Okay.
It's like this guy was nice enough to ask us a question yesterday, and I didn't see it in time.
No.
But SMU +10 versus TCU. Anybody have any thoughts on this? I actually, I would actually lean on the other side, but I don't want to be, telling James to not bet it because it's not for any real strong reasons that I like TCU. But if you guys have any thoughts to help them out, and if we're all passes, we're all passes. That tells them something too.
I'm listening. I have an opinion on this, but I'd like to listen to all you sharps first before I embarrass myself.
I wrote the goal sheet preview for this game. Let me find it.
Did you just edit it or did you engineer it?
I wrote it. So
What? No,
did
that's
I
not
edit
what I
myself
asked.
afterwards? No,
Huh?
I don't think I did, but I wrote it. Hold on,
Okay.
let's see.
Let's hear it, baby. Let's hear it.
Let's see. What would have been Sunday nights? There they are. Marshall, Appalachian State, MTSU, Charlotte, Liberty Cuse. Where are you? SMU, and I remember writing this. There
They're
it is.
underneath Memphis. There you go.
There they are. Yeah, right on. Did UTSA Memphis too? So yeah. Let's see what I like. I said Max Duggan struggles with accuracy, but can beat you with his legs. And Quentin Johnson looks much improved. That's one of their better receivers. Tanner Mordecai is up to 16 touchdown passes through 3 games, including the one to Reggie Robertson at the end of last week's game to help them survive La Tech and Ruston. I've been to Ruston. Ruston had great food, but you had to drive an hour away from. I mean, that's rural Louisiana to get it, and it was probably one of the best meals I've ever had. But beyond that, I mean, La Tech has now blown games against Mississippi State in a game that they were up, I think, 17, and blew that late, and this past week in heartbreaking fashion against SMU. I mean, look, I know Rob really likes the Mustangs, and they definitely passed the eye test. I mean, you can't make up the fact that they can move the ball through the air, and Mordecai makes good decisions. He obviously has a high pedigree, having originally enrolled at Oklahoma. So, yeah, it's a game that they can win. But on the other hand, TCU, this was probably their best team in the last 5 years. So this would be a great opportunity for them to flex some muscle. I think the number's about right. If I was betting the game, I would lean over. I think that's what I did on this recommendation, and then I would take the points. Let me see. Yep, I like the over.
Yeah, he's thrown. I see this. I didn't even know this. He leads the nation with 16 touchdown passes. Does Mordecai?
Yep, he had 7 in week 1. And I think another.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The Frogs are 5-0-1 when facing each other and seeking revenge. That was the one that stuck out to me. That it's obviously a bit of a rivalry, the two Texas teams.
Yeah,
I guess they call themselves the Alphabet Bowl or something.
The DFW game.
They're about 2 miles away from each other.
Yep.
The VFW game. Yep.
No, DFW. Dallas Fort Worth.
Oh, I got you. I misunderstood.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's changed. Here's in this game. I think I've read several pundits' opinions on this, and correct me, but almost all of them they kind of reference. They say, "Listen, doesn't look like anything's changed from when these two teams met in 2019." Well, I would respectfully disagree. While Gary Patterson's calling, while his business card used to be, his title was Mr. Defensive Patterson. He's not that same Patterson, or that team's not that same team that was a decade ago when he first came over. But here's what it is, and that is, this is a lot better team than that 2019 team, especially offensively. Now, here my question is this: is Mordecai? Is he Shane? Is he Shane's equal? Is he, the Texas transfer back in 2019? Those two teams played to a 41-38 final, if you remember that game. Okay.
Shelley or whatever. Yeah, I would say he is.
You think they're equal? Okay. And the Mustangs have a couple of I think guys that are going to translate into the NFL pretty well. I mean, I think Bentley, the running back, I think will play. He'll be playing on Sundays soon. I don't know how much he'll play. They have a pretty good tight end in I think, what is it? What's this? It's Calaterra or Calicatera. Is that correct? Yeah. And Reggie Robinson, the junior, is he's a pretty dangerous guy on the outside.
He'd be in the NFL right now if he hadn't broken his leg.
I think you're right. I agree with you. But the difference is that this team for the Horned Frogs is much more dangerous offensively than they were in 2019. So I would agree with you on one. I think that let's put it this way. I think that's a big number, but I think it's a number for good reason. I like TCU. I like the Horned Frogs to win by double digits, but more than that, more than carrying that number to the sportsbook counter, I would agree with this. I like the over.
Yeah, I like
That makes sense,
SMU.
too.
SMU won 41-38 in the most recent matchup.
2019.
This looks like a very similar, 38-35, 41-38 type game.
SMU is 17th in the nation. Now, there is some numbers here that I think you have to cherry pick, and I think you would be. I would advise you to, mull them. I have a couple beers and consider is that number, will that number move forward? And they average seven. They're 17th in the nation in yards per play. It's over 7. So has SMU who they've played? Is that representative of the rest of the season for them? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Which is always tough to do. And I think it's becoming easier. We should be able to do it in week 4, but sometimes it's still not. It's still hard to put your arms around a team.
What do you think, Mr. Vino?
Well, I'll say this. The reason Tony mentioned I liked SMU and I played them season win total over. But they killed the transfer portal. And you already mentioned Tanner Mordecai and Grant Calcaterra. Guess what? They went to Oklahoma and got both of those through Oklahoma. Calcaterra was one of the best tight ends in college football 2 years ago before he got hurt. And then, of course, Reggie Roberson's already been mentioned here. But, again, that day he broke his leg. He already had 4 touchdowns in that game. He would be an NFL wide receiver, as Tony mentioned already. Let me say this about TCU. And Gary Patterson, because Tony started to make a good point, then he kind of drifted off of his good point to another point. But the good point was that Gary Patterson, his calling card is as a defensive guru. As far as Big 12 teams go, they're always – well, not always, but 95% of the time, they're the best defensive team in there because of him. He was the first guy to come up with this 4-2-5 and play a lot of defensive backs against him. But you can't take the field 2 weeks ago, and I don't care how much prep time they had for this game. And they had a bye week last week, right? So they have 2 weeks to get ready for this. 2 weeks to get fired up, 2 weeks to trash talk, 2 weeks to do whatever you want to do. You can't take the field at home and give up 309 passing yards to Cal. Because Cal's passing game blows. Bill Musgrave brings that West Coast system to Cal as the offensive coordinator, and they never grasped it. Just look at the Week 1 game against Nevada when they couldn't move the ball at all. Yeah. And all of a sudden, if you watch that TCU game, Cal was throwing it all over the lot. If they can throw for 309, then what Tanner Mordecai and company can do, regardless of whether or not they can play defense. Because, another reason why I like this team this year is because Jim Leavitt became the defensive coordinator of this team, and it might take Jim Leavitt a little bit of time. They might need a few better pieces, but I'm not going to put anything past SMU where recruiting is concerned because I lived through the early 80s, and they'll get players into there, and he'll be fine. He does a good job, but they didn't play
guys
good
to
defense.
get in there?
Uh-huh.
They'll pay guys to get in there again?
Well, now you can, right? Now you can. So owning an auto dealership and, making a guy your face of your place is okay now. It wasn't when Eric Dickerson was riding around in a Trans Am. But, the point is last week they couldn't stop Louisiana Tech again. These defensive issues crept up one more time with SMU. So to Tony's second good point, Max Duggan and company, they are a little better offensively this year. Especially on the ground, where I wonder if SMU can stop them on the ground. You have 2 teams that should move the football, and all of this analysis to lead us all to the same place. I wasn't going to speak too much on this because I really like this game, but believe me, the total just seems to be the way to go in this game. I can see SMU going up and down the field against that defense. Mordecai is mobile enough to get out of the way. I'm sure Gary Patterson's going to have some blitzes here. Power ratings that I keep made this game TCU -5. This line is double of what 5 is. So odds makers are seeing something I don't necessarily see here. But still, rather than take my chances with the SMU defense, I'd rather take my chances with them scoring 30 points and the other side scoring 30+ as well and getting this thing over the total. So that's probably where I'll land on that game. But Either team winning this wouldn't surprise me. So back to, who is it? James Lill? Is that his name? James
Yep.
Lill?
Yep.
He thinks SMU plus 10 is a good. I think it's a better pick than TCU minus 10. But I won't be on either one.
Very good. Very good. Let's stay with Rob and hear what he has to say about that Miami Dolphins pick that he likes as an upset.
Oh, man. This is so situational, though. It's got nothing to do with. Well, I guess it could have something to do with fundamentals, but I like the Miami side. First off, let me say this. I don't feel like the difference between Tua and Jacoby Brissett is that big of a deal, honest to God.
No,
Jacoby Brissett scores.
I think he's in this situation. Brissett's a perfect fit for Miami right now going into Vegas. It's a perfect. It's much better than Tua, in my opinion.
It's almost comparable to what Teddy Bridgewater's doing in Denver, right? You want a veteran guy that knows how to move the football, won't make mistakes. Jacoby Brissett, for what it's worth, played really good football in Indianapolis, and just because Phillip Rivers showed up and he was Phillip Rivers, he got shoved out of a job. And Phillip Rivers did a good job. Don't get me wrong; brings them to the playoffs, and they probably should have beat Buffalo. But Jacoby Brissett probably could have hung on to that number one quarterback job in Indianapolis and done just fine. Here, I think he'll do just fine. Miami's defense, to me, is going to be a difference maker in this game. The Raiders have done real good through the air. Derek Carr, a lot's being said about Derek Carr right now and the job that he's doing through the air. But let's back up half a minute here, because all the talk we hear about the Pittsburgh Steelers this week is, they can't win with Ben Roethlisberger. They can't run the football. Their offensive line. I grant you, the offensive line still isn't opening up major holes for the run game. But they played that game without Devin Bush and T.J. Watt. Are there two bigger defensive pieces on any team? Think of the best defensive team you could take Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey off of the Rams defense and see what they do. T.J. Watt and Devin Bush are extreme difference makers on that D. So Oakland, in fact, when T.J. Watt, I think he got hurt in the first quarter of that game. And at the time, if you bet that game in-game, the score was low and the total was low. So I played the game over. It wound up winning that bet just because I thought the two defensive guys made that big of a difference. And they did. I think it helped Derek Carr's stats. I think he played the Baltimore Ravens, who were without a boatload of defensive pieces, and he threw all over them. So Miami's going to be the best defense he'll play all season long. Check mark towards the Dolphins in this game against him. Check mark towards the Dolphins because I think they're undervalued because Jacoby Brissett's as good as Tua. Check mark to the Dolphins just because situationally I think they're going to bounce back, and you're asking the Raiders to do this 3 weeks in a row. So there's a lot of little reasons that start to build up and make a case for Miami in this situation, and it's probably why I'll be on them. You're going to get a little bit of value because the teams are looked at a little bit differently here. Miami certainly off that 35-0 loss isn't looked at the same as they were when they beat New England in Week 1. And now, most people would say that that's not that impressive to go to New England and beat a Mac Jones-led offense either with really no explosiveness whatsoever. So, a lot of reasons, guys, that I think Miami's going to make my card on Sunday.
I'm with you. I think it's worth a money line sprinkle, too. It sounded like Tony Finn was with us too.
What? That? Well,
yeah, Miami plus the points and a little sprinkle in the money line.
Well, here's what if you watched, did anyone watch that game?
Which one?
The Miami game, Miami Buffalo game.
Yeah, I had it on.
I watched it till it was basically over.
It wasn't representative of. There was just first off, Tua doesn't do a great. I don't think Tua does a very good job. When he should not be allowed to audible out of plays, in my opinion. Every time he audibles out of a play, it's like the offense. There's breakdown in the line, or it's like he's not on the same page as the offensive line. They didn't help him much. I mean, it was almost like they had an agreement with the Bills, the defensive front. Listen, we're going to let you take this kid's head off so we can get him on the sidelines, and then it was almost like they slept. They didn't get off the bus, and they were at home. They didn't even take a damn bus. And Singletary when you let Singletary reach 21 miles per hour coming out of the backfield on a run, then you haven't touched him. You haven't touched him. They didn't. The Bills running backs got lanes that were uncharacteristic of this Miami dude, and it's one of those games. It's one of those games that I hate to say this, and maybe it's not good business, but there's lots of times during NFL season, especially early on, I throw games out because they don't make any sense. Because we all know this Miami defense isn't a bunch different than last year's, and they were much more technically sound, much more reliable, and you pretty much knew what you were getting. So, if you think, in truth, let's look at Josh Allen's numbers in that game. His numbers don't represent a 35-0 score.
Nah, they weren't great. It snowballed, Tone. That game snowballed out of control. Yep. They got up early, and Miami couldn't come from behind. Real quick, I just want to make one fast point to your point about Tua and maybe the offensive line. You know, we were saying that in jest, of course. The offensive line would never look to get their quarterback killed.
No,
but Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, two wide receivers at Alabama who played for two different quarterbacks, both asked by a reporter, Tua or Mac Jones. You expect Devontae Smith to say Mac Jones. He played with him. But you don't expect Jerry Jeudy to say Mac Jones, and he did. I think it speaks volumes to what even the Alabama receivers thought about the differences between those two quarterbacks. Listen, the arm talent for Tua is there. But, again, when Tony was talking about audibles, that's what brought this to my attention. Between the ears, NFL style, Tua's taking a long time to grasp the NFL game. And that's not to say he never will, but at this point in time, I don't see a lot of difference between him and Jacoby Brissett. They're going to have to defensively get after Darren Waller, but I dare Derek Carr to throw at Xavier Howard. Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to look. I didn't look at this, but it seems to me, anytime anyone plays Oakland, guys, anytime Oakland goes to an overnight, what do you think the first thing that I look up, or the first thing I refresh what would be the first thing you would assume that an idiot like me, with my background, would look up?
Going to Oakland?
Teams that are facing Oakland. What's the first thing I look up at? What at the first variable I look up. It's automatic for me. I'm telling you right now, it's the first thing I do.
If they played a Monday night game or a Thursday night game, they're on a long rest or short rest.
It could be in Mexico City on February 30th.
Right. You're not saying specifically going to Oakland. You're saying just playing Oakland.
Just playing Oakland.
Raiders. You're not playing Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Well,
well, yeah. All right. So,
Los Angeles Raiders. Los Angeles Raiders.
I obviously can't think like an idiot, I guess.
Yeah, well, I expect you not to, so that's why you stop. I look up at, and I don't look at yards. I don't look at touchdowns. I don't look at. Here's what I do. I look at fantasy points. What is Miami? What is Miami's? What do they give up to tight ends in fantasy points? It's the first thing I look up.
Well, if you're bringing it up,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Darren Waller, you got to target Darren Waller.
There it is. No, Darren Waller. I don't care. Ruggs is going to be. I think Ruggs will be a capable receiver, but he doesn't understand zone. He doesn't understand how to read a defense yet, like a Ty Hill. Ty Hill knows exactly when to sit down or when to fly, to run right. Just run right in the middle of that man to man and pass. Hopefully, pass the safety. But as Waller goes, so go the Raiders in a course of a 17-week season, 18-week season.
Yep.
Yeah, he's the number one option in the passing game. Go ahead, Tony.
No,
I will not be touching this game whatsoever. But the one thing that stands out, if you like Vegas, Josh Jacobs still questionable with the ankle injury.
He's not healthy. He's not 100%.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not going to be 100%. Yannick Ngakoue, one of their top pass rushers, dealing with a hammy, may not play. And then up front, Incognito hasn't debuted this year. Leatherwood, the kid from Alabama, obviously talented, but he almost cost them that the Monday night game twice with miscues around the goal line and jumping early and whatnot.
Anthony, here's a question for you and all of you. But if I tell you that incognito, and let's say you didn't know what team he played for, you didn't know who his teammates were, but if I told you incognito graded out as the top offensive lineman for a team in this prior season, what would you think of that offensive line?
And you know what, Tone? We didn't even mention it because we've been harping on this for 4 weeks now since the preseason about how that offensive line is a complete sieve.
Yes.
And, all that talk, and I didn't even mention how bad their offensive line is. So for what you were saying before about Buffalo opening up holes that you could drive a truck through, this Oakland offensive line is not going to open up holes that you could drive a truck. They stink. They stink. And they're injured, as Tony Mejia just pointed out.
Yep.
I don't know. 2-0 is 2-0, and it's good, but I think it comes on the backs of a lot of a couple of teams that were really, really banged up on the defensive side of the football. Put it that way.
I mean, I would love to jump on Miami. I didn't love what I saw from Brissett. I mean, he was in there in short yardage.
Yeah, but he didn't expect to play. It's one of those situations.
I guess.
They
do get Will Fuller back.
I give him a pass on that.
They get Fuller back, and Parker should play. I mean, on paper, the Dolphins should win that game. I just don't know that it definitely won't make my contest card. I'll tell you that.
Well, how about our contest card?
How did you do in the contest this week? I heard the 5-0 the first week.
Horribly.
No.
1 and 4. I went 1 and 4.
He's still in good shape.
I had the Rams blew a lead. I had the Seahawks who blew a lead. I had the Cardinals who won but not by enough. And then the one game I hit was Green Bay, which is down at halftime. So just par for the course this week.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rams were my 5% play. I loved them. Everything that happened in that game it looked good early, and then ultimately we ended up losing on the carom because on the 2-point conversion, the ball got batted up in the air. It magically fell to Jack Doyle, and they were a 3-point game instead of a 5-point game, and that's all it takes.
Yeah.
That's how razor thin these things are sometimes, boy.
Well, let's go on to
a lot of 3.5s last week. So I mean, that's really what the line is now. 3.5.
It was a tough card last week.
You get an 11.
To pick 5 games, it was a tough card.
Yeah, you get an 11-point game, and you're going to either win by 1.5 points or you're going to lose by 0.5 point.
I'm glad we talked about that, Mine, because I wanted to hear some stuff. It was my first, Sunday before the games even started, and throughout the games, I start looking at overnights. I'm interested in what perception is. And for the most part, when we talk about, like John brought up the charts, and he showed us some of the movement or some of the variables or the variance between end of June, 1st of July, and September numbers. That total, you mentioned the total. That
the
jump
Seattle
from
one?
Yes. That's all. That jump, it has nothing to do, John, in my opinion, has nothing to do with the public. Nothing. That is the bookmaker saying, listen, first off, what we found out in week 2 was don't believe and don't expect Seattle to play defense like they did in week 1. Don't expect it because this is still the same. Listen, they're better. One thing Seattle's doing better is the pressure. They get in the backfield a little more than they did last year, but this is still not a very good defense, especially without their safety. That I don't understand that trade, never will, and I don't get it. But without him threatening to be in the backfield, then they're a pedestrian team. They're a pedestrian defense. But I think Carroll understands. I think Carroll listened to me when we had a conversation. I said, listen, Pete, defense no longer wins championships. You just need to be capable. And what Seattle has morphed into in the last 2 years is light years from what Pete Carroll represented his whole career. And that's 2 stout running backs. I'm going to run on first down. I'm going to run on second down. And if I have to, okay, I'll throw on third down. That's not what this team is. This team is going to throw the ball 50 times a game. And they know that Pete knows they're not that good defensively, and we got to get a 10, 14, 21-point lead and hold on. It is what they
Yeah, it
are.
was painful to watch
Yeah.
that second half. Taylor Lewan didn't even play for Tennessee, so they were down their best left tackle.
Yeah,
and,
he got hurt in like warm-ups.
Yeah, he was supposed to play. But, I mean, he came into the season off the ACL, so it didn't look like he was ready. And
These
then
guys, they
Chandler Jones turned him into a turnstile in week 1.
Right.
All the sacks.
They need a Hollywood Henderson medicine bottle that he keep in his pouch, and that nose spray that it wasn't really for the nose necessarily, but it was a painkiller.
8-5 Cardinals now.
Hollywood Henderson, one of my favorites.
It's incredible.
They're on fire.
Such
Hey,
a
Tony
humble
Finn.
young man. Yes,
What would you say to
I'd say yes.
rebuttal that says that Minnesota's not bringing Derrick Henry to the fight this week? I mean, Derrick Henry was the single difference in the second half. They could not tackle that dude.
You said Minnesota? What?
Minnesota's not bringing Derrick Henry. You're talking about Seattle playing zero defense, right? In that game,
Yeah.
Tennessee was
Tony
Tony Mejia,
yes.
because they
Yes.
were up double digits in the fourth
Yes.
quarter, right? It didn't look like the Titans were doing much, but all of a sudden they kept going to Henry, and Henry wore them out, boy. From the middle of the third quarter on, he wore them out. And Dalvin Cook's on a sprained ankle. It looks like they're going to send him out there again anyway on this sprained ankle, but he's not Derrick Henry. So would that make a difference in how you looked at Seattle's defense this week?
Would. I didn't say anything when Tony mentioned that. Here's my rebuttal to that. Somebody says, Tony, how could you possibly play the over? Cook may not be 100%. He may not get his 30 touches or 25 or 30 touches, and yada and yada. And maybe Minnesota's better because Derrick Henry was, all world. I would say this. I would say, here's what I think about Minnesota, and that is Cook is always going to get the attention of DCs. Every week they're preparing for Minnesota. And I think Minnesota, another team where an old school coach that is defensive minded and he'd like to run the football 60 times a game if he could. Guess what? I think Cousins is going to throw the ball 45, 50 times in this game. I think you're going to see the more incomplete passes you have in a game, the more time is on the clock. The more complete passes you have in this game, the more points are scored. Both of them equal high-scoring game. I don't like 55. I don't like the fact that it moved that much. Just knowing that it moved that much. But if you opened this at 55 and you ask me, how are you going to play this game? If you were going to play a total, would you be north-south of the closing number? I would say I'll be north.
Yeah, I mean, and without Cook last week, I was there on the Arizona-Minnesota over. I mean, you were trying to help me put that play in at 3:30 in the morning last week. So, obviously, Minnesota moved it against that defense rather easily last week, and their pass defense is a sieve. Oh, dear Lord. I mean, you got to face Lockett and Metcalf and all these guys, and that. I know Tone mentioned that they're getting some defensive guys back. Anthony Barr, linebacker. You get your pass rusher back. But that secondary, which was supposed to be better with Patrick Peterson in there, it's no better.
It's not better.
Kyler Murray made him look, kind of silly back there.
Cousins is Cousins, but I dare any of us, or I dare any of you to say, listen, Cousins he's not capable of engineering a 60 minutes or 30 minutes of offense and scoring 30-plus points because we know he is. Despite the fact that this team is giving away, much like Minnesota, is Minnesota, are they related to Houston? Do they have that same DNA? Because you're not supposed to give away receivers like Minnesota has given away and Houston's given away. Receivers like that are worth 10 times. They're Bitcoin compared to U.S. currency. They're hard to get.
Well, the two they have now are pretty damn good. Is Adam Thielen never not open? Is Justin Jefferson never not open? Those guys are always open.
And for fantasy owners here, anybody here playing fantasy football? Because I used to play 20 leagues. I don't. Okay, the third receiver for Minnesota. This guy.
he caught the first touchdown last week.
That's right. A single coverage.
Osborne?
No, yes.
Yeah, KJ Osborne.
Always single covered. And if in your league, unless you're in a 12 or 14 team league, there's a good chance this guy's available. And I'm telling you right now that he's never going to be bracketed, never going to catch double cover. Why? Because of what Rogers said. Because what you guys said, Jefferson and Thielen. He's the third receiver, and this Minnesota team's going to score some points this year through the air.
You know what? In the NFL nowadays, Tone, I say this to my son all the time. If you don't have that, if you don't have three of them, then you're not good enough. You better have three wide receivers, or you're not good enough offensively.
Look at Sammy Watkins. Has Sammy Watkins been fairly impressive this year?
He's been okay.
Yeah.
Well, he was just okay. That's because these damn guys always hurt, seems like, right?
Right.
But he's a pretty good receiver that couldn't get enough targets because why? Because they got a corral full of receivers that run 4.2 40s for this Kansas City Chiefs team.
He's made life easier for Hollywood Brown, who's having a good year so far.
That's
yes.
true.
So, but yeah, to get back to your Vikings secondary is awful. Patrick Peterson hampered by a toe injury, Harrison Hand dealing with COVID, and Rashad Breeland is. I know he didn't practice yesterday, so that's three of their best corners. So it's basically Harrison Smith and a bunch of no names. So yeah, I mean, I'm leaning Seattle in that, even though I'm worried about their defense as well. But Vikings home opener.
Yeah, listen, I like Cousins, but if you're gonna force me to call if Cousins is head and the Seattle offense is tails, I'm still gonna call tails on the coin flip.
It's the NFL, and you got a team that's 0-2 that played both on the road, and now they're coming home.
Yep.
And if there's situational, the NFL is not always about, and I could make a real good logical case for Seattle. But in the NFL, that's the one league where logic goes down the drain every single Sunday, the NFL.
There's another team. There's another team playing this weekend that was mentioned on this show, I think, that played their first two games in a row. Listen, in the old days, when you went on the road the second week in the NFL, listen, your percentage, you're just percentage-wise, your odds of being successful went down. A third was you never touched an NFL team 3 straight road games. Well, the Broncos go home to Mile High for the first time for their season opener at 2-0. But I know a lot of people who are fading the Broncos.
Yeah, well, John, when you showed your sheet with all the massive differences, I mean, I know Denver's a 10.5-point favorite. What could they possibly have been way back in June? I mean, it wasn't 10.5. That's got to be a massive.
No.
Let's see.
Where are they here?
Well, James Little's covering it up, isn't he? No, he's not. All right. There he is.
So
5.5. Broncos minus 5.5.
Right there.
So
5.5 and now 10.5.
Yeah, it's a big move.
So don't you think that's back in June we didn't think the Jets were going to be this bad?
Yeah, I tell you one thing also that I don't like about that is that again Denver has one of their big pieces is not going to play he may be out for the season now, it's just too bad because that's still who this team is. This Denver defense is still pretty darn good, and they're coached pretty well too.
Well, it's what you run into, right, Tone? Like last week, we spent a lot of time on this show with Jets in New England, and we're all in agreement with New England for one real reason. You got Zach Wilson, who I think is going to be a great quarterback, but he's facing Bill Belichick, and it just doesn't go good for rookies. And now you're going to take this kid on the road and put him up against Vic Fangio, which is not – maybe it's not quite Bill Belichick, but it's the same thing, right? If you give Vic Fangio a defense –
he'll be running for his life.
I don't think Fangio gets near the credit he deserves. This guy can coach defense. I still think that Elway calls the shots offensively and player personnel, et cetera, et cetera. It's certainly not Fangio, and it better not be. But he's quite capable defensively.
Yeah, so point being, Zach Wilson's going to be up against it defensive scheme-wise 2 weeks in a row, and this time he's not even at home. This time he's on the road. What you were mentioning before, Josie Jewell, the middle linebacker from Iowa for Denver, is gone for the year, which hurts. No question. They have to replace him.
So
They're
I'll-
looking to the free agent market, street free agents to try and fill that void. But they're going to fill it from within right now. But still, with the corners that they have, I mean, Patrick Surtain wasn't starting. He stepped up last week to start because Ronald Darby got hurt, and Surtain looked like he should have been the starter all along. So Zach Wilson, but 10.5 is a lot of points, right?
It's
It's
a
a
lot
lot
of
of points.
It's a lot of points. It's a lot of points. No depth on that New York Jets offensive line. Listen, I think Wilson has been. I think he's been good, considering who's in front of him.
Yeah, you feel for him because he's in a lousy situation. It's going to take time to see how good the kid really
You
is.
see, somebody from Philadelphia, or the drive-by has already started happening for John.
John's gone. John's
gone.
left us.
Oh no, I'm here. I'm
Well,
here.
The Ben Simmons people have gotten to John.
Really? Oh, this is great. I'm famous.
Yeah.
Wait, what
It's
was my
famous
my
comes-
camera's not
famous,
working.
Famous is subjective, whether that's a good thing or bad thing.
I don't know why my camera just went off, but
Well, it was quite added something to our boring conversation. But I listen. I'm still. I really like Wilson. I think he's been really good. In fact, Wilson, I think I might be wrong. I thought Wilson was going to be the less than of those quarterbacks that went in the early because I didn't trust BYU's competition and what he did against that COVID competition. But all things equal, they were pretty. I think he's. Not only has he listen, better legs than I thought he had, and in truth, I thought he'd look smaller in an NFL uniform, but he doesn't.
Right. Right.
They hammered UCF in the Boca Raton Bowl, Tony. I didn't
Yes,
impress
they
you.
did. Yeah.
Hey,
Now he's got all the tools.
how do you guys watch the 1 o'clock block in NFL? Because I would bet that I do it in a different way than you guys probably all hate. But do you pick the games that you have action on? Do you do picture-in-picture?
Well, I don't watch.
you at a
I don't watch
sports book?
games. Period. I don't. That's funny that you said. I may watch one, but I don't watch.
I don't
I
watch
work.
either.
I work, and then I watch the edited versions later on. I watch it 2 or 3, 4, 5 times.
I turn on 702 with
Yeah.
the 8-pack of games, and this
Yeah.
past week they had 9, so the only game that wasn't on was Carolina. So I put that in my picture in the corner, and I got all 9 games on, and then I scroll. And there's so many commercials, you can watch them all. I go to the sound to whatever game I'm most interested in at the time. I know it's because you're really watching just little screens, so that's not attractive the most. But that's the way that I watch the 1 o'clock block on NFL games. Works for me.
I watch reruns of Jerry Springer and and I once in a while watch one of those old movies called The Godfather.
So
Can't bother with football.
That's not
at
an
1
old
o'clock.
movie.
They're appropriate for a Sunday. Lord's Day. Watch those shows. That's good, right?
His head's chopped off. I don't think any of us, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here for all of us, but I don't think any of us can just sit at 1 o'clock and watch. I mean, where I'm sitting right now in this office, to the side of me a computer and a printer, but ahead of me 3 TV monitors. What I do, Tone, the first one, the one with the volume on, because I'm putting in college football box scores from the day before, but the one with the sound on is always Red Zone. And
Okay.
the other 2 have games on, and then one computer has I'm cheating with a live stream. So I've probably got Red Zone in 3 games and just listening to the Red Zone only, because you can't listen to 4 screens at once. You drive yourself nuts. And you work at the same time. You got to do what you got to do, right? I mean, if you let those hours pass by East Coast time from 1 to 7:30, by the time the 4s are over, the 4:30s are over, can't lose 6.5 hours worth of work on a Sunday. That's impossible.
No, that's true. I save the ones just to where I'm watching football, and then once the 4 o'clocks roll around, that's when I'll start my gold sheet stuff and my.
Yeah, because you're writing all night long too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I start with college football on Saturday night. So like once games are wrapping up, I'll spend that the 10 p.m. late block starting my writing for Sunday, so I don't get behind. But yeah, I mean it's
Right.
a bear. We're tackling between the 3 of us, 50 games. So for
Yeah.
the next week. So yeah.
No, that's a task. There's no question. That's a task. Now, why is he mad?
What?
Bottom, I could see he's getting irate down there.
I don't know what he's doing. You
He's
trying to mute your mic
upset.
again or something, or
Who?
you looked like Jim Harbaugh there for a second.
I didn't. Well,
Yeah,
that's
throwing
he's a
stuff,
lot better
banging
looking
stuff.
than me. I don't mind looking like Jim Harbaugh.
You look like you're gonna kill somebody.
I might have been. No, I wouldn't kill anybody, but maybe torture him for a little while. I would.
Practicing for your Ben Simmons, taking the day off of work.
I like Ben Simmons. He's my buddy. He just can't shoot free throws. That's all.
And that's all.
They don't have any medication for that.
Tony Mejia, will you be writing both of those at the same time once basketball starts? Football gold sheet and basketball gold sheet at the same time?
I do what they tell me, but
Wow.
yeah, I assume. Well, I mean, because college
It's a lot,
basketball will come up, and I mean that's more. NBA is easy, but college basketball, that's going to be.
Oh my God! Did he just say NBA was easy?
Well, there's only a certain amount
right
of
up
games,
there.
right?
Yeah.
College-
handful
Oh,
of
I thought.
games
Listen,
and-
don't ever
The
call
volume.
anything easy because you have just absolutely buried any chance you have of being successful. Just
No,
because
I'm
NBA
saying
gods,
the
NBA
analysis
gods
comes
will
easy.
show you how easy it is. Huh?
The analysis comes easily. I mean,
Right. I think what he's trying to say, Mr. Finn, is
What?
college
What's he trying to say?
basketball has a lot of conferences, some of
We
which
only have
are as big
357
as the
We only
NBA.
have 357 teams in college basketball. What the
I
hell?
pre-ordered my blue ribbon, Tony. I'm waiting the transfer portal, see how it all shook out. I mean, like, shoot, you don't know who's on anybody's roster at this point.
No,
And,
Yeah, we know. Yeah. I
so-
start with a tight end in college basketball. I look up the fantasy numbers for college basketball tight ends, and it takes care of everything.
I listened
It's
to
definitely time to
a
go to.
Matt Painter interview this morning with John Rothstein talking about how good Purdue is going to be this year. That was my
In
first
football,
Oh, yeah.
dive into college basketball. I mean,
Purdue, listen, here's what it is. If Purdue has three guys that are 7 feet tall in the paint for Coach Painter, then they're going to be okay.
they got rid of
They
the one. He
do.
plays for BYU, right? Didn't they shove Harms off to BYU last year?
Zach Edey, isn't he like 7'11"?
That's two big guys.
He'll be
yeah,
back.
that's two big guys.
I'm going to start a round of final best bets.
Okay, Phillies. You're up, Tony Finn.
I'm up.
Yeah,
John picked
we're
the
going to
Phillies.
take a minute.
Okay.
A minute.
I'll tell you what.
It-
I'll tell you what. Okay, if I'm up, then I'll have to cheat because I wasn't prepared for this. I'm always prepared for best bets. So we're going to do this. I'm going to go to baseball. I was going to go to football, but I'm just going to go to baseball because who cares about Thursday night football, especially when Houston's involved. And Carolina, who's amazing, the top rated defense, one of the top rated defense in the league, and it's not. And they've played, they've played all world. They've played first place teams. Let's go to baseball. Let's go to who Alex Cobb is, and who McCullers Jr. is. Little LA Houston
I
matchup
love it.
tonight in Anaheim. And because they're in Anaheim, that's why we call them the Los Angeles Angels. Cobb been pretty good this year since he's gotten healthy. He hasn't pitched a lot, but since June, he hasn't lost since his last start, the final start in June. He has not given up more than one earned run. Now, granted, some of those he hadn't been real efficient, and he pitched 4 and et cetera, but 3 shutouts or 3 scoreless outings, 3 outings where he's allowed 1 earned run, no more. And he is 3-0 since the end of June. And he's pitching well enough that the bullpen seems to catch a little bit of that mojo, a little bit of that juice that he leaves on the mound, have pitched well. And the offense hasn't had to score 8 runs, which is typical of Angels teams, or at least backing the Angels. If you believe they're going to score 8 runs, then you have a chance backing them. Houston is finally. Listen, Houston's finally. They were hit and miss for the last, let's say, the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or since we all started paying attention to the wild card chase and who was going to win the division. In fact, Houston, they were losing and they were only a couple games up. But they all they did was look at Oakland, and every time Oakland had a chance to close in on Houston, Oakland was blowing a lead. Houston's going to win this division. You're going to see a bunch, quite a few, 3 to 4 backups for this point forward. They'll start setting their rotation for that October 5th, or what is it, guys? 5th or 6th first game come postseason for the Fall Classic. And they're going to be they'll be much more Dusty will be much more apt to sacrifice a win for giving a player some rest, or a pitcher putting one of his starters on a pitch count. You're going to see more of that. Dusty's never been that guy, and Pryor and Wood are pretty good examples when he's letting them pitch 170, 180 pitches a game for the Cubs. He's become a little more of a 21st century manager, and while I think Houston's the best team in the American League, they're the best team in the American League. I think balance-wise, they're even better than Tampa Bay, although Tampa Bay's done a heck of a lot better job hitting the ball. I really like under 8.5 in this game with McCullers and Cobb. I like this, though. I like under 4.5 just as much. And I recommend you split it up. You play under 4.5 first 5 and under 8.5 for the game. And I think you win both.
Awesome. And speaking of which, Dr. Chuck over at sportsmemo.com has a 10-unit play. And he's been nothing but outstanding in Major League Baseball. He's been coming on some one-on-one shows with me now, almost daily. Yep. And it's one of the few 10-unit plays that he's ever put out, and it's on this game.
There you go.
And I think you can get it pretty cheap over at sportsmemo.com. I forget how much it is, but I think that would be a pretty good opportunity.
When's that
Little
kid
plug
coming
for
on
him.
Again? I got to get on one time when that. When's the last time we saw Dr. Chuck?
Last time I was on a show with him was last year's NBA.
We didn't do a show with him last year in the NBA. The COVID year. I think it was the year before, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He was on Tuesday.
There's that famous line that still comes from that where him and I we did a lot of sawbucks on those shows, and one time I just said, listen, doctor, either find the buried Quaaludes in your pharmacy or pay me, bitch. And everybody thought that was
one way or the other. But John, I could see you getting along with him because he's Philadelphia all the way. He loves the Sixers. We used to taunt him relentlessly with the Sixers on that show.
Yes,
we come out with all these.
Well, I liked it when his wife's underwear was hanging in the background when he's doing the show.
Oh my God!
It was a great show.
He'd be sitting there, 5 pairs of his wife's underwear hanging off the dresser. Like, Chuck, what the hell? Kids running around all over the place. He's got like 7 kids.
Yeah, well, and then the whole neighborhood's there too. There's like 15 or 20 in the living room.
So funny. Oh my God. Ranieri used to crush him. But I'd like to see him again. I haven't seen him in a couple of years. He's a good guy.
He'll be on again. He was on.
I owe him.
He was on a pub show this week.
I owe him a bottle of bourbon, and I went to send. This is why I was telling. Here's the deal. I went to send it to him a year ago. I sent the first one myself. I bought it here, put it in a box, sent it to UPS, and they delivered the box back to me like 2 weeks later and said, "You're not to send. You can't send alcohol in a box. It's against the law. It's a federal law. You can't do that." I didn't know. What?
Something bad just happened.
Well, Memphis Depay just blew a clear goal. Barcelona's going to end up with a draw. This is awful.
Oh my God, we've gone from golf to
Continue.
Continue.
You're in stoppage time.
Fucking virus in the show.
Don't mind my misfortune.
So I don't even know what I'm talking about. What was I talking about?
Let's go to Rob Vito for his 1 minute best bet.
$60. I bought the bourbon for $50. They want to charge me $60 to send it to Dr. Chuck. And I said, hold it. What if I buy Old Crow for $8? $60 to deliver it to Chuck. So I called him and said, listen, you just need to come to Vegas. Next time you're in Vegas, I'll have 2 bottles of bourbon for you. I'm not paying $60 to send Old Crow to you. That's all there is to it.
That's all there is to it.
That's it.
Rob Vino, your free pick Your free 1 minute pick.
Yeah, listen, I
what are you
would have
trying to
done
say?
this. I would have done this for you tomorrow, but I won't be here tomorrow. So let's do it now. College football tomorrow night, Middle Tennessee and Charlotte Conference USA game. Listen, MTSU had their quarterback Bailey Hockman, North Carolina State transfer, walk into the coach's office Sunday morning after he got pulled Saturday afternoon, and he left the program. He claims it's because, he's got a wife and a newborn, and he just thinks his obligation should be somewhere else. But the way kids quit teams nowadays, who the heck knows? There's a transfer that had a starting job that got yanked in the second quarter of the third game. Maybe he just felt like, I'm done with this. But his replacement, Chase Cunningham, is a kid who's played for MTSU before. Last couple of years. Came in as a freshman. Hasn't been the number one starter for an entire season yet, but he's been involved in games where he has started, games where he's come off the bench. He's a big kid, and he's a good thrower. So I don't see any reason why there should be a setback as far as quarterback play is concerned out of MTSU. Bailey Hockman is not that great of a quarterback to begin with from his NC State days. So that being said, I think MTSU, who's come off of 2 games where they had to play the defense of Virginia Tech, and then last week they had to play the defense of UTSA, Texas San Antonio, 2 teams that, defensively up front overwhelmed them. Charlotte's not the same animal as far as overwhelming anybody with their defensive front, so I think they're going to be pretty successful. First game of the year, they scored 50 points, I think, MTSU. It's a team that'll throw it. They're finesse-based. They'll run spread offense. Stockstill's had the same offense there for a lot of years. The other side of the coin, Chris Reynolds, it feels like he's been at Charlotte forever. But here's a dual-threat quarterback who's really, really talented. Little guy, but he makes plays. And, again, the MTSU defense is very vulnerable. So I think that in this case, 56 to me looked a little bit low, and I think it remains at 56 just because people are putting a lot of emphasis on a quarterback leaving a program. This is a step down in class for Middle Tennessee as far as defense they're facing is concerned. Again, it's not Virginia Tech. It's not Texas San Antonio. It's Charlotte. I think they'll put their points up. I think the other side will put their points up. They scored 31 against Duke. I think in that 31-28 win Charlotte did. Certainly Duke's defense a little bit better, at least on par with Middle Tennessee, probably a little bit better. So I don't see any reason why this thing doesn't get up and over 56. So I'll leave you guys with that. Over 56, Charlotte, Middle Tennessee tomorrow night.
Excellent. Mr. Mejia, you are next with your show best bet.
All right. Well, WNBA playoffs start tonight, so I will give you guys a little bit of a breakdown there. But let me appease Tony Finn by saying that I also like the Astros tonight. I think he just liked the total. But against Alex Cobb, small sample size. Jordan Alvarez 1 for 1. Jose Altuve 3 for 6. Alex Bregman 4 for 6. Yuli Gurriel 2 for 5. All those guys have hit him well. McCullers 12 and 4, and he's I think career highs in WHIP and strikeouts and innings pitched. So he's finally figured some stuff out. Angels look like they're running on fumes. Astros have gotten 39 runs through the first 3 games of the series, so not going to tinker much here. I for clients I played laying the 1.5, and hopefully, baseball's been going really well for me of late. Lost that Brewers game today, but hopefully the Giants come back, the Braves hold on, and the over in Mariners A's is already hit. And so back to the WNBA, Sabrina Ionescu makes her debut in the playoffs for New York, and they're catching 10 points at Phoenix. I take those 10 points. But my best bet, the one I'll use for the show, is also my free pick available at my Wager Talk page, wt.buzz/TM, and it is the Chicago Sky laying 5 points in their matchup tonight. And let me give you a reason why I like them at home to win this game convincingly. Candace Parker, who's their star, is their worst free throw shooter at 79%. So you're talking about a game that's probably going to be tightly contested down the stretch, and you can turn to Allie Quigley, who's a 96% free throw shooter. Kalia Cooper, 82%. Courtney Vandersloot, 86%. Stephanie Dolson, 95%. So you figure if you get the lead late in the final minutes and their opposition gets desperate, we're gonna do well here. And laying 5 points, not that much. So give me the Chicago Sky to beat the Dallas Wings by more than 5 points.
Tone,
Like
let me
the
ask you
plays.
real quick. Let me ask you real quick because I was texting Ski the other day because, like you, he covers that in WNBA. I watched a WNBA preview show the other night in anticipation of these playoffs, thinking maybe I can get involved. I know zero. I don't watch it. I'm not really comfortable betting it on my own because I don't know. But when they previewed that series, they said something about the playoff experience for the Sky was some outrageous number of playoff games combined by their starters compared to the Dallas Wings, who had just about zero playoff experience whatsoever. A couple of big scores. I think two girls from Notre Dame,
Yeah,
a couple of years back, right? The girl who made the game-winning shots in the NCAA tournament, a couple in a row, one against UConn. But the gap in playoff experience, it's that huge between those two teams?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about Agumbawale, who was the star at Notre Dame that year, and they picked her number one because they've been so terrible. So Dallas is probably, I would imagine that this is their first playoff appearance ever. I'm not positive on that because I'm definitely not a WNBA expert. But the Sky have vets: Candace Parker, Vandersloot. These are players that have really gotten experience. And so, yeah, I think at home, Chicago should handle business here. The Mercury are expected to handle business against New York, but New York hasn't been healthy most of the year. Ionescu's had her rookie season really hindered by injuries, but she's healthy now. And, if you're interested in getting 10 points, I would take the liberty to.
Yeah, 5 at home sounds cheap when you got so much veteran leadership that's been there, done that. With Chicago, I'm not the Phoenix, but the Chicago side.
And the Braves bullpen has blown their lead now. Wonderful. Should have played these all first 5. Good Lord.
I'll tell you, wait a minute. I'm going to interrupt you real quick. I had Chris Bassett today, first 5. They're winning 4-3 after 5. Now Seattle's winning that game in the top of the 6th. They scored 3 runs. So first 5 has become such a way to go in Major League Baseball. Oh, my God.
And they
Sorry,
jack
John
up
Ryan.
the prices too. That's the one thing to keep you off of it because I was weighing stuff the other day and I saw that the first 5 money line ended up being like 190 and for the game it was like 155. Just ridiculous. I mean, that's why odds makers do what they do, but it happens every single day.
The difference today, if you wanted to play Max Scherzer run line, first 5 innings, you had to lay $1.70 to lay a half a run. If you wanted to play the Dodgers, the visiting team, mind you, not even the home team, the visiting team, 9 innings was $1.65. There was only a nickel difference between the first 5 run line and the full game run line. They're trying to deter you from betting either one, I guess. But I mean, at that point, why not just lay the half a run and play Scherzer first 5 and think he's going to outpitch the other starter? He didn't do that, but when the incentive is only 5 cents, I mean, why would you play full game and trust a bullpen? Kenley Jansen, Tony Finn's favorite guy.
Morton threw 96 pitches. He gives up 2 base hits to start the inning, gets replaced. The guy that comes in immediately gives up a 3-run homer.
Lights a fire.
Well, I guess it's my turn to do the Ryder Cup because everybody in the chat room is interested in that. So I'm going to say
on Tuesday.
I did start talking about it on Tuesday. Yep, and I pretty much haven't stopped.
Thursday's acceptable.
I was distracted by the Ben Simmons news, but other than that, I would have been really focused on it.
Listen, I listened to this already. Patrick can't lay at 7-1. I know that's coming.
Yep. What else?
Patrick can't lay at 10-1 to be the best overall score of anybody. Somebody's playing 5 Sergio Garcia. I heard that. Go ahead, John. You know it better than me.
Sergio is 70-1 to have 5 points. There's 28 points in the whole match, so that would mean that he would play all of them. I thought he was only going to play 4 based on the rosters, but it looks more and more like he's going to play 5. So I'm willing to take the chance that he plays 5 and wins them. He's one of the best Ryder Cup players in the history of the event, period. So is Ian Poulter. So I found another interesting one, and this is my favorite one, and I actually might make this like a 3-unit bet, that there will be any player will have 5 points. So any one of these players gets 5 points. It's a winning bet. That pays 7-1 at BetMGM. And that I'm going to make that my single pick for the show, and then the rest of them are my pizza money bets. But it's gonna be passionate. And one other one is Europe plus 2.5 minus 120, and for the event to end in a tie is 12-1. So we'll add both of those as pizza money bets. And if it ends in a tie, Europe retains the cup. I'm not being anti-American, and these are American books, and Americans are going to bet on the U.S. players, which gets them a little bit inflated. Europe has won this thing for a lot of reasons, and they've been a dog in just about every one of the last 5 that they won. So anyway, that's all I have. And it starts tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., and Nick Borman will be with me live at 7:30 a.m. We are going to take a moment of silence when the first tee shot is hit, and I'm going to air that live on the show as well. And we'll be on our way.
What show? When is that? When does that happen?
7:30 tomorrow morning.
Okay.
First tee shot's at 8.
You're right. I will be asleep. Thank you.
4:30.
It's archived. You can watch it later.
That's okay. No, I don't watch anything archived. Nothing but unless it's football film or basketball film. That's it. Nothing.
And lastly, and kind of important, we don't ask to like or give us thumbs up on the YouTube channel or ring the bell or all that good stuff. But I want you guys to do it today because we're hitting 62.5% on the show, spanning 107 picks. That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good result, and that's worthy of 2 clicks to give us the thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell. Okay, guys and gals.
Is there a middle finger button you can push on that?
I could create one in Adobe and put it there if you want.
Bam. Okay, that's the one I like.
I can make it animated too.
I don't like getting thumbs up. I like when I get the finger. Then I know somebody's paying attention.
Well, anyway, thanks guys for your time. I'll see some of you guys tomorrow.
I'm paying attention, Tone.
Yep. I'll see some of you guys tomorrow for the show on Friday. And I think that's about it. So for Tony Finn, Tony Mejia, Rob Vino, myself, WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com, and Manny, Irish Pub Sports Betting Show. May all the wins be yours.
And all your golf